righteousness of Jesus. We have been given a faith that is precious. Through the righteousness of Jesus. We have been given a faith that is precious. So may grace and peace be multiplied to you through the Father. May grace and peace be multiplied We have been given a divine power, life and godliness. We have been given a divine power for life and godliness, the righteousness of Jesus. We have been given a faith that is precious. The righteousness of Jesus. We have been given a faith that is precious. So may grace and peace be multiplied to you through the Father. May grace and peace be multiplied to you. For we have been given a divine power for life and godliness. We have been given a divine power for life and godliness,
Well, welcome to the Prolife Team podcast. I'm Jacob and I'm here with Brandon. And today we're going to talk about Centers Together. So, Brandon, let's just dive into Centers Together. I think most people would know your backstory at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So Centers Together is an virtual training event that we're putting on for pregnancy centers across the nation. Actually, I should say across North America, because we had a bunch of Canadian centers register as well that are coming into it for the training. And one of the unique parts of Centers Together is it's really designed for the training to be done in-house in a way that creates relationship with your team, meaning that we are building out these tools to make sure that you're able to participate in the conference, but do it as a team in a way that actually builds your relationships with each other and the speakers as well.
Awesome. So, yeah, it seems to me like Centers Together is really championing how clinics who have a hard time making it to the Heartbeat or CareNet conference based on travel, cost, hotel, breaking away from their, with a small team and having to close their center for a few days. It seems like you're really making it accessible.
Yeah, our goal is definitely to be accessible, especially for the smaller centers. As a matter of fact, we have a small and rural center track. Actually, we call it a ministry path that they walk down specifically for small and rural centers. But we're not really positioning this as an alternative to the main conferences. Those are good, and it is good to send one or two people, but it's near impossible to send your entire staff, let alone your volunteers, and so on. So we are really designing this so that your entire staff and volunteers can be a part of it. And we've done that both with pricing and the format so that everyone can be involved and be on the same page. Not only that, we're making sure that it's got the training that will involve everyone across the board as they're participating and able to be a part of it so that they're going to be able to bring it all back together to your entire center. And you'll be able to say, as we learned in the centers together, and go from there. So it does have the traditional format where we have a keynote section where there is a keynote, but then we have the breakout classes, or again, as we call them, the ministry path classes that cover 6 different types of functions inside of a pregnancy center. And one of those isn't quite a function, it's the small and rural center path, but then we have all these other functions that are available for you depending upon what you do at the center that allow you to learn specifically to what you would need to learn. But again, and then bring that back to the center as a whole. Um, Not that you probably were going to get there, but each day is themed so that it all that is being learned across all of the different ministry paths is themed to a specific theme for that day and will help explore that particular theme for that particular function so that they're able to learn and grow in the same area. So, again, you can bring back what you learned and you will be learning something on the theme for the day, similar to, say, if you're a volunteer, you would learn something similar to what your medical staff might be learning. It's obviously not the same thing, but it is themed around the same idea, and that's the keynote is themed around the same idea. So every day you're catching that theme and working with that theme as a group, and you're able to talk about it as well.
Interesting. So, what's an example of one of the themes that you might be using in this next or this first Centers Together conference or training?
Sure, absolutely. So I think the way that we really are doing these themes has to do with the client journey and the way they walk through the centers. But the first day is really built on the idea of who your center is, and it's built on this. The theme is build the mission. And the idea really here is, what is the foundational purpose and reason and motivations for a pregnancy center? What are those things that drive you and what makes you healthy? What makes you effective? What are the things that really are at the core of who you are and what you do? And again, the important piece here is that we have our keynotes that are built around this, but also every single one of the classes is going to be built around this. So we have many doctors teaching, lots of nurses teaching, but also lots of lay people and pastors and everything in between teaching all the different ministry paths classes that are going on. But those classes are going to be on that, what is your core purpose? What is your reason? The second one is the second day theme is on meeting the moment. And this really is about those early interactions that really shape the client's entire experience with the center. That one moment as they're walking through the door, and how does that apply across all of the different ministry paths? And amazingly enough, we have found that even though not every position at a pregnancy center is client centric or even at that first moment client centric, there are ways that what they do will make an impact in even those first moments that are really important to consider and to walk through. So we have amazing speakers coming in across all kinds of different uh, organizations and different emphases to, I think that's actually emphasize to be exact. They would come across and will talk through how this theme works with the different ministry paths. I'm just going to give you the other two because it's only 4 days, so
Sure.
might as well. The other one is Walk the Journey. And this is about walking that with the client and what that looks like, what the best ways to do that are, what ways we can be encouraged to walk that journey. Again, it's both in the keynotes, and then all the ministry paths talk about walking that journey, what that looks like for your nurse managers, what that looks like for your nurses, what that looks like for the people who run your baby boutique, just everything in between, the sorting the clothes. And that's one of the big points here is like you never would have been able to bring that your volunteer who sorts the clothes. And they don't always realize that they're part of a bigger movement and the encouragement that they're going to be able to get because that they see, whoa, man, I sort clothes and I matter because there are people sorting clothes in 1,000 different cities inside the United States, and I'm one of those doing good work. And to be encouraged by that, that is just a great piece for them to be a part of. And then finally, we have Plant the Future, and Plant the Future is just what are we doing to sow into the client in a way that will help them graduate and be empowered to go out and be people of faith inside of the community on their own. And what does that look like to move those clients on? And from every ministry path methodology, what every position inside of the pregnancy center, what can we be doing to look towards the future and work towards that moment when they graduate into doing amazing things out there in the community from their own faith, from their own belief systems. So that's our four themes. That's again, our keynotes are based on those. Our ministry paths, each one of those is going to hit those. And it's going to be an awesome time of learning and growing. Now, I didn't mention that we don't just have these ministry paths, we also have panels that are going to be talking. And in those panels, we're going to have experts in different areas that are going to bring information. And those are scheduled every day. We have different panels that you're going to be able to hear from and be able to learn from for each ministry path, for each theme. You can tell we've got this kind of figured out to where each day you're hearing about a theme and you're sticking to your ministry path, or if you want to jump around, no problem. And then the next day we'll be hitting a different theme, and the path that you're taking will determine kind of who you're hearing from and what you're hearing about.
Interesting. So, how much of the content will be pre-recorded versus live? What does that situation look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good question because we are emphasizing relationship inside of this conference. And so when relationship requires interaction, right? I mean, people don't just need to be told what to think from the top and not have a way to ask questions. So when we are doing this, our keynotes are going to be pre-recorded, but our every other session, every other way thing that we're doing, which includes the ministry path classes, it includes the panels, and it includes the courageous conversations, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But the all of those are live, and as a matter of fact, the people presenting in the ministry paths, I'm not sure they're excited about this or not. But they get an entire hour where they are required to sit down at a table. So it's virtual table. It actually looks like a table. And anyone can take a chair at that table and just talk to them like they're in a meeting. So we are going to be one of the most accessible um, presentation systems that's out there where, you know, normally if you're at a conference, you might have 10 minutes. If if I'm the presenter, you have 2 minutes to ask questions and that's it because I talk too much. So the point is that they are going to have an entire hour. So the teaching is an hour, and then everyone gets off, and then you can choose which table to go sit at and ask questions. And so you will be going into each one of these and having that entire hour to get that interaction with whatever speaker it is and get that relationship with them. Same thing with the panels; those are going to be face to face, so to say, on online, face to face, where you're able to ask questions and to have those conversations. So, in general, our keynotes are pre-recorded, and then every single class is not, because you need to have the ability to ask questions and be responded to, and that's why we're doing it that way.
Awesome. So, and then for those who aren't able to be there live, will they be able to watch the recording of those who did attend live and watch that interaction?
Yeah, good question, Jacob, because that's like the number one question that everyone asks, right? The answer is yes, you can go back and watch it. Now, I do want to throw out there that I think there are a lot of people with great intentions to do that that never do it. And so I don't want to I'm not trying to throw shade. You have it for 3 months, you can go listen to it. But I think most of us know through experience that we don't actually do that. And then it just moves on. What I would make the suggestion is that you actually set aside time to do it as a group. We have people we have a center that actually has a retreat center that they're going to go and watch the keynotes together. They're going to go into the different rooms and watch their ministry paths, and then they're going to come back and have lunch together. As a matter of fact, one of the things we're doing is we are sponsoring lunch for 3 centers a day. So all you have to do is send us a picture of you having lunch with your crew, and we will randomly choose 3 centers to pay for whatever lunch they had, because that's what the level we want, right? We want you to be interacting and being together. That's the whole point here, is to grow relationships with both your team and with others. So I do understand it's imperfect world. You can't always be there, but if you can set aside time, even if you just set aside time to hit the keynotes and then come back to the classes as you see fit, I would highly suggest that. We've got some powerful keynotes that are going to really challenge us. They're really going to also encourage us. And I think you don't want to miss those. And I think your team isn't going to want to miss those either.
Yeah, there's definitely a real gravity or a real impact, greater impact to watch something live and then to be able to participate with the questions and really just to be present with it being created more so than watching it afterwards. That does have greater impact. So tell
Yeah,
us about
100%.
the courageous conversations. What is that? And what do you have in line with what do you have in what's your idea for that area?
Well, I think one of the biggest areas that we could see opportunities for growth inside of the pro life movement is the ability to have conversations about hard things. Now, all the time we talk about having conversations with hard things, and we're talking about talking to a client about abortion. That is a good conversation to have. But it's an interesting thing that when we disagree on methodologies, or when we disagree on the outworking of how we are doing something, we often create these tribes, and these tribes don't allow people who disagree with us to be in our tribe. And this tribalism, which has come to really hamper US politics, has also come into the pro life movement. And I believe this is actually hurting us as a movement. We need to be united in the fact that we are here together to do a job that God has given us. And I'm going to be specific. God has given these centers a specific job to do, and where they are called, they should serve. And so there's a bit of how do I say this the right way? There's a bit of lack of clarity when when someone from the top says you must serve this way or you can't. be a part of our group. And I think that's problematic. So I'll give you a couple examples and then explain how courageous conversation comes out of that. So, an example would be we have many centers that we know and love who work solely inside of parenting, and they do some abortion minded clients, and but mostly they do amazing parenting. And these tend to be rural centers run by volunteers who are doing God's great work that they have been called to do, even if it doesn't look like what might be a city center who does almost no parenting work and does mostly, abortion determined client appointments. So the problem isn't that these two centers exist, because they should exist. They are called by God to their individual moments, and they should be doing whatever those individual moments are. The problem I have is when we say, you know what, these guys are doing it wrong, these guys are doing it right. What we should be saying instead is there are opportunities here. Let's talk about those opportunities together. But we recognize God's individual calling, and we recognize that we are here to be a part of the same movement. So, what Courageous Conversations does then is actually put people who disagree on an important topic, but a hard topic, into the same room with a moderator. And the entire point of this conversation is to lovingly and with respect talk about why they believe that their methodology or their way of doing things is the right way of doing things. And they have a topic and they're going to talk about it. And I believe that as Christians, we are called to be able to love each other even if we disagree. I mean, and there is nothing that we should be divided on except for on the cross. I mean, that's literally, we have a single thing that is, salvation through Jesus Christ alone, and then the definition of Jesus Christ, of course. And then those other things are important, but they are not necessarily dividers. So I'm going to give you some courageous conversation topics, and I want everyone to recognize that I'm putting things that I believe in onto the chopping block here of ideas, because I believe in the fact that we need to have conversations. And so the first of those is, does a parenting program distract from the main mission of a pregnancy center? And we need to get people to be able to have that discussion without having their feelings hurt. Instead, with being able to hear, listen, there are things that are incredibly positive about a parenting program that need to exist in some places. And there are things that can become a distraction for others in other places. And we need to hear the two sides from people who have thought about this, who have gone through it, and who may disagree but still love each other because they understand God's calling on individuals. Another one that is very controversial, that I still love people who disagree with me or who even agree with me on this, and that's the care kit. The care kit being a very controversial subject, and it's okay for it to be controversial. It's okay to disagree with someone. I think the problem becomes where we become tribalistic and say, if you use a care kit, you're not on our team. And or if you don't use the care kit, you don't understand the advanced ways of reaching the abortion pill client of today. That both of those are overstatements that are unhelpful for the unity of the movement. So what we need instead is we need a discussion by doctors, by lawyers, at a level where we can see and try to understand where God is calling us specifically for our specific moment. That's something that's super important to be discussed and not dictated. And this is where I think we get into trouble, is that there's a decision for the movement instead of a decision for your moment. And that's a different place to be, because where you are, you may never need a care kit. It may not be a discussion you should be having, because you may be in that rural location where you are working with clients at a more parenting level, Or you may be in a place where the care kit is something you use and need every day. Or it's a place where maybe you just don't feel comfortable. You don't believe that God has called you. The problem isn't the differentiation in methodologies. The problem is in the hate of others. And unfortunately, I've gotten these letters that specifically say, what you're doing is evil and we can't participate with you in any way, shape, or form. Literally, all the way through all of the organizations I work with. They won't work with any of those organizations because of the fact that we believe this is a good tool. And that right there is actually going to hurt our movement more than it's going to help. I don't care if you disagree, but can we disagree in a loving way? Courageous Conversations is designed to help our movement be able to hear differing voices without being reactionary one way or another, but to say, where is God calling me specifically on this topic?
Yeah, the example that I think almost everyone listening could relate to would be APR, abortion pill reversal. There were so for me, it took 3 months to even comprehend what Dr. Delgado was talking about with APR, and then there was a long period, let's call it 4 years, maybe even five, where people were trying to build awareness that APR existed. And during that time, I remember talking to many medical directors and centers and clinics that were not willing to take on the risk. And yeah, and so all that to say is there's a really good example. And now I would say our movement has fully embraced APR as a tool, but it had a rough start. It wasn't like a light switch. It was more of like a slow roll in. And I really think that these controversial conversations, to me, it sounds like partial. When my wife and I are having a difficulty, and I simply clam up and don't talk, I just make it worse. I build anxiety. But as soon as I eventually start to talk, the anxiety goes away, and I start to experience Philippians 4, 6, and 7, which is don't have anxiety, pray with petition slash prayer and with thanksgiving, and then the peace of God will be epic. And so all that to say is, talking about it is a huge step. Clamming up just simply builds anxiety and fear, and that's not what we're called to do, at least according to Philippians 4, 6. Um, and Yeah, so the care kit, I mean, I would just say I expect it might take longer than APR for its roll in. I think it might
Yeah,
be a 3 month, a 6 year experience, something like that.
yeah, I don't disagree. And there are lots of cutting edge things that I know that people are doing right now that that I think many centers would be uncomfortable with. And I know there are national organizations that push against these things that then become the standard practice over time, right? I'll give you a couple of them, but abortion pill buybacks. This is something that is very controversial. And I know some nationals have some big opinions on it, but I think that's the cutting edge of the pro life movement. At a minimum, we should be having that conversation. And there are organizations that are actually trying to stop that conversation from being had. They're saying this is the absolute and it should not be discussed. I don't agree with that. Another one is progesterone through automated systems. I have a friend who has a little
The
medical
Dropbox
vault
premise.
on their clinic, and you're able to go get the progesterone with outside of normal hours. They're able to unlock it for you, and you get it right there. So I think there's a need to be discussing these front end things so that we are, as a movement, making the best decisions for where God has called us. And you're absolutely right. APR is a perfect example of it. There are a lot of these. I'll give you another one. HIPAA. For a while there, centers were being told from the top down that you must be HIPAA compliant. Even if you are under HIPAA, we're going to say that you're under HIPAA, and then it got flipped on its head where now it's not a good thing to say you're under HIPAA because there was a
Yeah.
lawsuit about that.
I wrote
So
an
the go ahead.
so I wrote an article once about the 3 positions on HIPAA that I was aware of that were coming from national groups.
Mhm.
And so my article wasn't really my opinion on what someone should do, but it's simply saying, here's what this group says, here's what this group says, and here's another version of another group and what they say. I just want you to be aware that there's 3 voices talking on this position of how you should handle your posture towards being under HIPAA or
Yeah,
not
and
being
that's
under HIPAA.
exactly that's the point of a courageous conversation, is people having the guts to stand up and say what they believe without hating the person across the aisle from them. And I don't know if hate's probably the wrong word, but without dismissing them. That I think
Well,
that's one of
cancel
the biggest
culture,
problems, is
to not cancel
assuming
someone.
someone's motivations are evil because you disagree with the methodology that they are expressing God's call on their life. And this is very, very touchy, but that's why part of the reason that this conference exists is to allow people to actually talk through what is. I mean, I'll give you another one, and this one's hot topic button. But advertising wording for Google AdWords. There are organizations that have absolutes. I think that should be talked through. I think organizations should hear from both sides. I do believe that you should make a decision based on where God has called you to be, but that should be a decision that is informed, not dictated. And I think the courageous conversation on this is going to be important for everyone to hear. So we have those courageous conversations are going to be a big part of the Centers Together conference. You don't have to go to them if disagreement makes you uncomfortable. You don't have to be there, but I would suggest that it's good for our growth. It's good for our maturity to be able to hear people and hear them disagree and hear them do it in such a way that they're still expressing love and respect for each other.
Yeah. When it comes to like the phrase, controversial phrases in a Google ad or on a website, there's a big difference when it comes to context and framing and the words that came right before and right after that will impact whether they darken a phrase or they lighten a phrase based on the posture and the context that it's within. And then and also Google, gave us an example of them pushing certain words onto our movement a few years earlier when they made everyone classify as does provide abortion or does not provide abortion. But the truth of the matter is that abortion clinics don't provide abortion healing, abortion care, true informed abortion consent. And pregnancy clinics do provide healing from abortion. They do provide risk assessment and information about abortion to help someone make a decision they're not going to regret. And it's sort of like asking someone, do you want milk or not milk? Instead of understanding that there is 2% whole milk, 1% low fat, no fat, almond, etc., dairy free, chocolate milk, vanilla, and so on. And Google, being the master of scope and when it comes to words that go with other words, um, the fact that they did that to our movement just shows it was very abusive and not in their character. And now we're sort of doing the same thing to ourselves with the using you can't use these words, you can use these words when it comes to pre-abortion consultation. And and it doesn't take into account the context of framing, and it also doesn't take into account just, all of the variables, the scope that is involved. And it really does need to be a courageous conversation more so than like a very short and to the point rule.
Yeah, 100%. This is just a common thing in the pro-life movement, is that there are things that people say this is an absolute, and that's okay for you to say that for your location, but it's very hard to in all cases apply something and say, well, this is how everyone must do it. And I'm not saying that there aren't good ways of doing things. I'm not saying that there aren't excellent ways of doing things, but what I am saying is that we should be talking about these alternatives, and hearing someone's heart on why they believe that way that they're doing it differently is the way that they are called to do it. And we need to understand, doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but we need to understand that there is opportunity for us to be united without being absolutely the same across the board. So that's what those are about, and hopefully they help everyone think through these topics a little bit deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we were talking about this months ago, or some of these unity conversations, I mentioned that I had some controversy or a disconnect with Choose Life marketing, and I may not have been happy about the fact that you told Nellie that I should have a conversation with her, but it was really good and it was hard. I would say it was like 8.5 out of 10 on the hard scale, but it was really good. I would say it's a 9 out of 10 on the good scale. And so when it comes to building unity, having competitors have those conversations instead of maybe holding on to bitterness. And I can be an example of that. When it comes to pricey clinics who are competing after the same donor base and they feel like they're competing, or when it comes to nationals who feel like their ideas are better than this other group's ideas, we really just need to have more conversations and break down some of these barriers within our own camp.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, in general, and this is not always the case, but in general, understanding where someone's coming from will be helpful in healing a relationship, right? That's not always the case. So I'm not Pollyanning this and saying that we all just need to get along, but at the same time, there is a reality that understanding someone else and their heart is a very good way to understand their ideas. And so being in those conversations, even though they are hard, as you say, even though they are hard, it is good for us to be able to have them. And I think there are. I don't want to make this too much of a national bash in one sense, because they do have forums and places where they gather so that they are able to speak together. I'm not privy to those, so I'm not sure, how those look and how much conversation actually happens. But in this, at the same time, there is, by at least some, a goal of talking and having those conversations. Sometimes those conversations are probably pretty darn hard, but I think that needs to roll all the way down to us having conversations between each other.
Awesome. So, through this experience of preparing and building pregnancy centers together, or centers together, where have you seen God's fingerprints, or how is He? Where have you seen God in this experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the coolest things is seeing him bring amazing speakers on board. And also sponsors too. We've got a lot of sponsors, but our speakers are just. I'm so excited about that, and he has allowed us to have. I think we have 10 doctors that are speaking. It's just an amazing number of pro-life excellence coming to the forefront to allow us to have some powerful people who know what they're talking about and are going to be able to bring that. And so I thank him for that blessing of being able to have that as just to make that happen. I think the other piece where I see God working is just in the blessing of the small centers, and that's where my heart always is. I love small centers because they do so much with so little. I think of them like the widow's mite. They and I if you know my history, I talk about having 24/7 coverage, and I talk about all these things of excellence, but I believe that the good that's being done by centers that are open Tuesday afternoons and Wednesday mornings is still amazing in God's eyes, because they are doing with what they have. and I think they should be honored. So where I am seeing God's fingerprint in this is just those small centers that are able to say, "Hey, thank you for this. We love that we get to be a part of this where we wouldn't be able to before." I mean, just for reference, Jacob, our pre um, early bird special or whatever it's called, it's only $29 a person if you bring four, I'm sorry, five or more people. Our goal is for you to bring your whole team. $29. That is a deal and a steal. And it includes if you bring more than 75% of your team, we send you a together box, which is just a box with a bunch of supplies and stuff in it that will help your organization feel together. We want everyone to attend, and so the fact that God has allowed us to minister inside of these small centers and to see those centers thanking us and getting registered for this is just fun. It's a great thing to be a part of.
Awesome. Would you compare and contrast centers together to like what how it connects or how it reflects or how it is in sync with BrightCourse, Bright Training? Like how does, where does one stop and one start, or how does doing both of these, make both better, or what are your thoughts on how this connects with Bright Training?
Sure. So first, I think our plan is to take the centers together, teaching and put it out on Bright Training so that you have access to it later as well. But we're not absolute on that yet. We just have to get to that point. But I think second is that, just our contacts with so many experts inside of the pro life movement has come through there. But to be honest, we chose our speakers based on how good they were at speaking, and the value of their ideas to the pro-life movement. We didn't choose speakers based on anything else, and those we happen to have a inside track knowledge because of what we do with BrightCourse of how people connect, what subjects they're excellent at, and so we actually invited them individually instead of having people apply. We went out to them knowing their capabilities and what they bring to the table. So there is a connection there, but besides that, it's very little. We aren't trying to make a big commercial for BrightCourse. Obviously, love if you use BrightCourse, that's awesome. But if you don't, Centers Together is still for you. It's the doctors, the speakers in general are going to give you great information, completely independent of BrightCourse and how to use it. As a matter of fact, I would guess roughly 90% of our speakers are, have would never, not that they wouldn't recommend BrightCourse. It's just not inside of their daily purview. You know what I'm saying? They are just going to tell you the truth about whatever it is that they're speaking on. They're going to challenge you. They're going to encourage you. But there isn't that connection necessarily with the BrightCourse system. But again, hopefully we can get them out onto BrightCourse. Those who are bringing important information, we want that training to be out there. We want it to be available to you. And I think we're going to see that as we go through all of these, who is excellent for bringing that information to BrightCourse that isn't already on there.
Interesting. All right. So I'm not sure if you have an answer for this one, but so Centers Together is obviously for pregnancy centers and pregnancy clinics. Is there going to be what are your thoughts about other groups like, the marketing company, the group that does legal work, the group that is a church ministry that's a sister to a pregnancy center? What about these other groups, and how might they, what kind of content or education might be available for the groups on the fringe areas outside of the pregnancy center main audience area?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to some extent, you not every lesson will apply, but at the same time, there are going to be quite a few out there. As a matter of fact, I think day 4 would be an incredibly challenging thing for anyone in of your church partners. We have a speaker. Actually, it's my pastor. Our church has 8,000 people in it. And he's specifically been asked to talk about the church pregnancy center connection. And he's actually also on a panel. And the goal of that panel is to find out why that connection is hard and what centers can do to make it easier. So what it is that can be done to bring that out. And I love my pastor. He's very well spoken, but he's also very honest and says things very clearly. So I hope that centers are able to take that away. But also churches need to hear that. You know, what is the purpose? What is the reason? Where are we trying to plant these clients into something beyond the center, and how can we do that with the church support? So throughout there is information that is going to be important for all kinds of people. So maternity homes absolutely should be a part of this. Their marketing companies should be a part of this to see the direction. They should be a part of the courageous conversation, to say the least. Hopefully, being able to ask those hard questions. So, I think anyone who is pro life, who wants to work through these harder issues, or wants to learn from experts on whatever it is, we have someone presenting on APR, a doctor, we have a lot of different pieces where if you have an interest, we've got people talking on it. So I think altogether we have, let me do my math right now. I think we have something like 50 or 60 total sessions that you can choose from. And it's one thing about it being virtual. If you get an appointment and you got to go to that appointment, great, go to that appointment, help that client, and then come back and you can and you can catch up, or you can skip that one, whatever it is. It didn't see something. I don't mean to say we will ever have a session time that's not interesting, but I know I've seen at conferences people look through and they're like, oh, there's nothing I want to go to this next block. Good news is you're right there in your center. You can go take care of business and come back the following block and catch that next one. Or you can go to any one of the tables, go talk to the speakers, ask them specific questions applying to your organization, the way that you use the information, and ask them because they've got an hour to fill. So we want those great questions coming from people so that they are able to apply that information to whatever specific place that your organization is filling.
So back in 2006 to 2010, I would go to Heartbeat and CareNet, and I would always go down the marketing track. I would make it a point to go to as many marketing track workshops as I could, and because I just loved to, try and make my ideas sharper, or to know what people might come back to me with, to know how I can respond and process what they're being taught, or what they might need or want. And then I started going to this really tiny conference, which I know you like. I like, is the Internationalized Services ATI with Sister Paula, and she had the entire event in a single room where everybody, including the vendors like myself, would get to hear all of the keynotes. And what happened was I learned that I would get nuggets from the legal keynote, from the medical keynote, from the counseling keynote, from the spiritual keynote, and it would apply and help sharpen my craft in the marketing space. And then I was the one giving the marketing keynote, but essentially I was learning from all of these other speakers. And so I was encourage those who are listening, don't pigeonhole yourself and just into your own category, but know that if you go to a category that's outside of your area of work, you will find things that overlap into your space. And that was what I learned, is that there's a great deal to learn, and not everything will apply, but there will be pieces that apply directly, even though it's in a different area of expertise.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, I think, something that we all learn as we go through is that we can see applicable information across the board. And we hope very much that you see that. But I would definitely, because we have been so selective on our speakers, and again, if you're not familiar with how other organizations do speakers, normally everyone applies and then they select from those that apply. And that's not a bad method. But sometimes I think it's better to pre-vet your speakers, and that's what we've done. And it allows us to say we have excellent speakers. And along those lines, I think because they're excellent, they're going to be able to bring their information in a way that's going to be applicable to many, many people and not just their core audience. So definitely agree with you. Come to something and see what they have to say because I think it's going to be powerful.
Well, so when does someone need to sign up by? How do they sign up?
Sure.
What's that process look like?
Yeah, you just go to centerstogether.com and then click the register button. The early birds pricing ends on December 31st. That's still a long way away, but don't forget about it. We are going to get there before you know it. So you can sign up and put in who you want to be in there, and then you can change it later if you need to. But for now, just head over to centerstogether.com and sign up there. We also have .org, so centerstogether.org too. Doesn't matter. Go to either one of them, and it'll get you there.
Nice. So, so what inspires you to spend time working in this movement? Like, what really, what wakes you up in the morning and gets you out of bed fully energized to do pro-life ministry work?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's an interesting one because um, it's a little bit more cerebral, which I guess if you know me, that may not be a surprise. But for me, I enjoy a challenge to do good. And I have a philosophy in life that I don't have to look for God's calling in my life. And before people tar and feather me, I believe God's calling is where He has placed me. I believe that we need to do the next good things that God has prepared for us to do. We know that we were created to fulfill the good works that God has prepared for us beforehand. And that being the case, every day I get up with an excitement to do good, to do the next good thing that God has put in front of me. And He's put a plethora of things that are good things in front of me, and that's exciting. And so we do so much that, it doesn't even have to do with pro life stuff. I mean, not that this is a big one, but it's something that I believe in and enjoy it. I teach Sunday school at my church, or not called Sunday school, but I don't even know what it's called. Oh, G Kids, that's what it's called. But I'm a part of that, and I enjoy doing that. I get excited to do that, and uh, I get notifications when I'm scheduled, and it always gets me excited. I'm scheduled this weekend, and I'm stoked about that because it's a thing that God has prepared me to do, that He's given me the tools to do, that I enjoy doing, and it's a good thing. So every day I get up and I get excited about doing that next good thing that God has put in front of me. And He's a good God. He's blessed me with just so much good that can be done. And I don't say that in that's not a bragging way. It's just what a blessing to be able to be a part of that. What a blessing it is that He prepared those for me to do. And it just makes it easy to go do. It's fun and it's enjoyable. And I go to bed happy and content. And I wake up the next morning exciting to get out there and do it again.
Yeah, well, I gotta say you're remarkable because when you were thinking about this idea, I was a naysayer or a negative, whatever it is, a negative Nancy. I'm not sure what the word is, but I was saying, focus on what you've already got. You got some, hurdles to figure out on infinite worth. There were some hard things going on, and I called this a distraction. But here you are, infinite worth is now in better shape, and now Centers Together is on the road. And so I just want to say, and I know you pretty well, and I thought I knew the situation, and I was still saying, you should focus more so than add a whole nother plate to the juggling scene going on. And you're here, you are, and you're doing all the plates.
Well, I want to say, first of all, thank you for your advice with all sincerity, because I think, and not that that was a wound, but the Bible says the wounds of a friend.
Yeah.
It's a blessing to have someone who can speak in that way. And I don't think there is, I don't think you were wrong and you aren't, but there are opportunities to step into, and then you need to prayerfully say, is that the next good thing that God has called me to? So I'm enjoying this. I have a lot of fun just with being able to wrestle with ideas. And it's how God made me, and I'm not ashamed of it. It's the way He's made me to do things, which is to see what things can be, and then to work through the execution of those. And I hope in heaven, I really do hope there are projects in heaven because I enjoy it. Right? I mean, like God's going to be like, that guy is the happiest when he's doing something. So I need you to go over there and build this city or whatever it is. I don't know. I
Yeah.
guess technically we're supposed to help rule over the new earth, whatever it is. I'm excited because that kind of stuff is good. So I agree. It's another thing, but my whole team, and that's something very important. That I have a great team. We have about 30 employees here that do lots and lots of things, but our team is always up for it, and they do great work, and it's awesome that I don't have to do everything. I'm just one more cog in the wheel, turning, grinding out whatever next good thing that we're on. So it's fun.
Yeah, and you do have a good team. I've interacted with many of your team members, and they're just very hardworking, amazing, good people.
Agreed
Um,
100%.
so I know that there's several national in-person conferences, and some have the virtual add-on. Um, was there already another virtual conference for the pro-life area, or is this the first virtual, with the virtual experience being the only slash main vehicle?
Yeah, as far as I know, this is the only one that's virtual. Heartbeat does have the virtual add-on, which I know is something that centers can get. I think one difference is going to be cost. We're aiming for your entire team. The second is um, the goal is to have your organization doing this together for relational purposes. And I think there are a lot of teams that have been looking for this opportunity. It's like a in service a led in service that's going to allow them to lead together. So I think it is a little different because the heartbeat, as good as it is, and the information you get there, this is built around this idea. It's not an add-on. It is that is what it is. And so I think from that perspective, it's going to be very fulfilling for anyone who participates because this is what we're doing. We are being a part of your day, and we're being a part of your moment intentionally. And that's where we are focused. We are focused 100% on the virtual event, and not, putting an event on and adding on virtual if you need it. And I do want to say, giving pure credit over to Heartbeat, they instituted that in 2020, and you got to give them, I know the word was pivot, right? Everyone used the word pivot, but you got to give them credit, man. They pivoted super fast. They did what needed done, and they made it happen. And so well done to them and their team for making that happen. And they do good work. I have nothing bad to say at all. I think they do good work, but I think this is going to be a little bit more focused on the moment for every single center, because it's designed for that moment at home with your organization.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I had a question. And I just lost track of it. Sorry. Let me think about
Happens
that
to
for a
me all
minute.
the time, as you know.
Yeah. Oh boy, it's just this podcast. So this podcast I started 3 or so years ago, and part of my motivation was, wow, I really love hearing people at Heartbeat and CareNet, NIFLA, these other conference, Missouri, et cetera. All these conferences have such good speakers. And I thought, well, how can we make it accessible so that people would both have more time to talk and more time to listen without having it without having the cost of going to an event that's, well, West Coast, East Coast, or Texas. And and so and 'cause I remember once I went to a workshop and it was with Lori DeVillis with Trotterhouse, and she gave this amazing talk, and she had like 7 points that she fit into a 50-minute piece. And I thought, oh wow, I would love to see her take one of those points and have the full 50 minutes instead of having to,
Right.
switch gears so often. And so that was sort of like the basis for this podcast was to give a speaker more time to slow down and talk longer, and letting someone listen and experience it without having the cost tied to it. Um, and so I'm a big advocate for what you're doing when it comes to lowering the cost, increasing accessibility, and if and when it shows up, letting a speaker focus on a point more so than having to cram 7 points into a 50-minute piece when they could amplify one of those points with more time when desired.
Yeah, 100%. And that's awesome, Jacob, because that's exactly where our heart is with this, right? It's let's get more accessibility and more access. So,
Yeah, that's good. Um, so so this is a new idea. One of the pillars of this podcast is to share things that are new. So I'll check that one off. And then one of the other pillars that I have in this podcast is share something encouraging to pregnancy clinic leadership. So I'm going to give you a challenge. What could you say that would be encouraging that you don't normally say? It would be encouraging to center directors, leadership teams that you don't normally say regularly.
well, that last part's cheating. That's like because
Maybe just speak, what's something that's coming to mind that you maybe, yeah, you're not pulling from yeah,
well,
your
yeah,
archive.
I'm gonna. I mean, I know I say it too often, or you've heard it too often, but I don't care. I'm gonna say it again,
Okay. Break
and
the
that
rule.
is, you should be encouraged that you are where God has called you to be. Just stop there and rest in that. I think we too often get caught up in should I do this? Should I do this? And it brings anxiety. And and sometimes we should stop and trust that God has put us where we're supposed to be. And we don't have to have that anxiety because he's a good God. He didn't put us into some weird wacko place that he has no idea how to get us out of. He's put us in that moment for a reason. And sometimes that sounds a little, I don't know, fortune cookie-ish, right? But it's not. It really takes you in that moment and where you are and what you are doing in that moment. And I think when you start from that foundation, that God has you where you're supposed to be, then a lot of stuff clarifies, right? Because you're going to be able to say, okay, now I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Now I just need to do good. And what's that next good thing? And, it doesn't mean there aren't times of hardship. Doesn't mean that you don't have to, spend some time on culture in your center. Doesn't mean you don't have to make sure your policies and procedures. There's always that grind work that has to be done. But you can start from a heart and an understanding that you're where you're supposed to be, and that makes the grind enjoyable. So just from my perspective, the center directors, but just everyone in the center is there for a purpose and a reason. And because they are there, so I people say that all the time, but because you are there for a purpose and a reason, rest in the fact that God knows where you are and rest in that moment of chaos. You can have a 2-year old of a mom running around screaming and you're trying to do a lesson and no one's hearing it. And you feel like nothing's being heard or understood. And you're frustrated because, the printer didn't work and all those things can be true. And at the same time, you can take rest in knowing you're where you're supposed to be. And maybe you're supposed to be in that place where a screaming 2-year old is screaming around and the printer doesn't work. That's where you're supposed to be. It's okay. Rest in that moment. So be encouraged because God knows where you are and God has you there intentionally. And what a great thing to know that and know that you are not forgotten in that moment. So there you
Yeah,
go,
that's
Jacob.
really
I
good.
say it too much, but whatever.
No, that was a rule you're supposed to break, apparently.
Yeah,
So, um,
well, I'm going to say it's a rule I'm supposed to break. I broke it.
perfect. So, yeah, because sometimes I feel like, if you ever read like a small Bible verse or passage, and after you read it again and again and again, year after year, you see something new. I think
Yes.
there's real value in getting back to the basics because and seeing how they apply today, and then refreshing and reestablishing our roots and our foundation. And so honestly, saying old things or true foundational brick kind of pieces um has value to be echoed and repeated because it does. I mean, it's provable based on the fact that we can see new insights and we need to be refreshed on old insights. Um, so I guess in that case, the new piece would be the fact that we can now hear that 112 times instead of just 111, and
Well,
now we get to pull
you
in
know,
new layers on top.
yeah, that's right. I don't think you're able to learn something until you're ready to learn it. And so I think there are nuances to the deep truths that we can't understand until we're ready to understand them. And I don't know,
Yeah,
it's God's timing on when that is, and and what nuance we're hearing at that moment. So whatever that is, I hope some people heard that nuance because they know it's true. Every one of them, everyone hearing this knows that it's true. If you're a Christian, you know you are where God called you to be for serving Him. If you know that, then the question is, do you feel it, and then what depth of that do you understand? So Jacob, as you're saying, it
yeah,
is good. I mean,
yeah. There's
I
there's
said it
different
was good
like
because
levels
I was
of
going to say it again, but anyway, I hope everyone feels that and understands it today and walks away with it and says, I know where I am and I am in God's hands. Go
yeah,
from
there's
there.
different levels of like understanding. I was in a small men's group at my church, and the pastoral leadership, told all our small groups, many of you have read the book of John many times, and so this time, we want all the small groups to read it backwards. So we read the last chapter, second to last chapter, all the way to the first chapter, and that was actually a really fun exercise to read the chapters, but to read them in backwards order.
That's awesome. Love
Or
it.
with like Psalms 23, I tried, memorizing it. And then I got to the point where I tried to recite it in my shower, going from the last verse to the first verse. And it was hard, but I eventually got it done a few times. But it just felt like when you know something well, you can then try and like take it to a different way or a different way of reciting it or a different way of understanding it. And for many people, they'll memorize a Bible verse in three different versions and they can see the word selection, how like Philippians 4:6 in the NIV says anxiety, but in the King James it says care, like don't care about anything or something like that. And the NIV makes more sense to me when it says don't have anxiety about anything. And but it's just interesting to see the word choice. Or in Hebrews 10:24, like, some versions will say spur, spur on others, and some will say prod. There's different levels of, friction when it comes to that word spur. But it's just interesting when you start to learn something greater, you get to actually you get a better understanding of, how to use it. And so yeah, I would just want to say, yeah, keep saying the good things that really are strong and foundational because they do grow, even though we may think, oh, we know that, but really, do we? Do we really know it?
Right.
Yeah,
Right. It's like do you swim in it? You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah.
is it something that is so ingrained that it comes out your pores? You know, so
Well,
not
or
to mix like
soaks in your
lots of
pores, I guess,
metaphors,
if you're
but
swimming, but Awesome. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for sharing about Centers Together. I hope that people will take advantage of this amazing educational opportunity to really invite their whole team into unity and and to connect with other centers who are striving for unity, and then still to send to send those who you can afford and that fit within your budget to the in-person events for that experience, which is also good. So would you wrap up our podcast with a prayer, and we'll just pray for unity and whatever else what comes to
Yeah.
mind for you.
Lord, unite our movement around you. Let us all seek your glory. But Lord, let us do it with love and grace and truth. Lord, let us see each other as not enemies, but joyful participators in your good works. Lord, I do thank you for the opportunity to get up every day and do your good things. I ask that you would help that joy be infectious across the movement, and may worry be out the window as we lift our cares to you. And thank you so much for being an awesome God. And thank you for your word and your truth. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
up to the mountain of mercy, to the crimson perpetual tide. Kneel down on the shore